In this video, we will continue to add content to the level 1 and the foundation wall of the Revit project. So there should have been a pattern embedded in the assignment that you need to download. It is for a gravel texture, as we're going to be bringing that into the file. So unlike bringing a family in, we can bring in patterns. If you go to Manage, Additional Settings, Fill Patterns, and down here at the bottom, there is a new Fill Pattern button that will allow you to load one. Okay, so I'm going to click on that, and I'll then give a name to my pattern. I'm going to call it gravel pattern, something just that uniquely identifies it amongst the other ones. And I'm going to hit custom. And now I'm going to browse to find the pattern that I just downloaded. And I'll open it. So one setting change I'm going to make is to change the scale. I think that the graphic is too large, so I'm inputting 0.25, and then I'm going to hit OK. All right, and then I'll hit OK again. All right, so now I'm ready to begin drawing in some of this gravel pattern. So I'm going to go to the annotate ribbon here, and I'm going to make a little guideline for myself. So what we're going to be doing is putting some gravel underneath this slab. If you remember, going back a few chapters, there's a whole sequence of materials that go into the assembly of a slab on grade. So if you look at this here, we have a layer of crushed stone that's serving as a capillary break. In other words, it's trying to help with the water drainage below the slab. What kind of water would you have under the slab? Well, it's possible some water is migrating from the edges, but you also may have some situation with a high water table where water due to pressure is kind of building up or pushing up underneath the slab. So anyway, the crushed stone layer is intended to sort of help to break the surface tension of the water and help with the drainage. You'll see here there's a vapor retarder that goes below the slab. There is a layer of welded wire reinforcing, and then there's the concrete that's poured. In this case, they have shown these perimeter forms that are helping to sort of lay out this, but we have a slightly different condition with our basement and foundation wall. So underneath my slab here, I am going to create a line. I'll start my line kind of over here, bring it across. And I can't really see it because it's underneath all these other lines, but I'm going to click on it and I'm going to move it down. I'm going to make a layer, a 6-inch, oops, not 56, 6 inches of gravel below the slab. All right, now to create the pattern in there, I'm going to go to region, oops, annotate, let's see here, create. Let me back up and make sure I'm using the correct one. And I don't want a masking region, I want a filled region. Okay, now I can go ahead and make a rectangle, and it's going to fill it with this region that is the current one. But I don't want that, so I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to call it gravel. And the foreground fill pattern will be the new one that I brought in. So I think this is the name of the file. So it didn't adopt the name that I gave it when I brought it in. but regardless, this is the one that we want. So I'm going to click on OK, and everything is good to go. Apply and OK. And now I'll go ahead and make a rectangle. I'm going to leave the edges as invisible lines. We'll kind of let it be a sort of soft edge where the gravel ends, and I'll just extend it a little bit past here and hit the check mark. And there's my gravel pattern. And that line that I used, I can delete that. Okay, now it looks like I lost the line of the slab above. So let's see if I can just bring this down a little bit to reveal that line. It's going to take, it's going to be a little hard to get that to, let me see if I send it to the back, what happens. There we go. I sent it to the back, and so no, it didn't pick it up. You see it? No, we do see the line a little bit. We see part of the line. All right, now one thing I can see here is that I didn't change the line weight for the footing. So let's go to the Manage tool and go back through our object styles. And let's see, do we have footing? I'm going to need to search to figure out what category this component is in. So let's see about, if you go down to structural and we have foundation cut, I'm going to change that to 2. Let's see if that took care of it. It did. Okay. And I'm not really happy with the graphics being lost here, so I will go ahead and add a detail line on top of it. Not an ideal process, but we were after the graphics to be clear, so I want to make sure that this is happening. All right, so I've added a couple of lines on top. All right, we're going to add a little bit more of the gravel area. So this is a detail in your textbook, and basically what we're looking at here is the foundation wall and footing. This area here that is a lighter gray tone is basically the area of the excavation. So in other words, in order to pour this foundation wall and this footing, they're going to excavate this portion of the earth. Okay, now down towards the left of the footing, we have a drain pipe, and this is going to help to evacuate water from the foundation area. So they're made out of different materials. Old school would be a clay tile, but basically the idea is, and you can see here it says perforated drain pipe. This is what we'll have. It's got perforations in it that allow the water to enter, and then it gets kind of carted away. Surrounding that drain pipe is more gravel. So we've got the gravel under the slab, and then we're going to have this gravel. And then this area above would be backfilled with dirt or earth in preparation for kind of finishing off the grade. So this area here is, it's kind of an irregularly shaped area of gravel fill. So we'll kind of try to duplicate this kind of irregular line to produce this. So I'm back in the Revit model, and under annotate again, I'm going to be using that region tool, filled region. This time though, instead of making a rectangle, I'm going to make a more irregular shape with this area of the gravel. Now it'll be roughly in this area to the left of the footing. I'll snap here and hit the check mark. Okay, so now I just have this area of fill, and again, I can either try to move this over, nudge it over a little bit. It's fine. Or redraw the line on top of the footing. And then over the top of this, I'm going to draw a circle that represents the drain pipe. Next, I'm going to draw the drain pipe. So I'm going to make this out of a region. So I'm going to click on the region tool. And when I look at the possible options, there isn't one that, what I want is for one to have the diameter of the pipe showing, but also that the interior is going to be a solid white. So I'm going to choose the one called solid black. I'm going to edit the type. I'm going to duplicate. I'm going to call this one solid white. Say okay. And then for my color, I'll choose white and apply and okay. Now, because I had changed the setting before, the perimeter is going to be invisible, but I want that line to show. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll try a thin line for this. And when I get to the point to draw it, I'm going to go to the circle tool. And, you can try to center it, but again, we're just trying to get approximately this location. We're going to make a 4-inch drain pipe, but that's the interior dimension. I want the thickness of the walls to be 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to put the radius 2.25, including that thickness, and click on OK. And all right, so now I have the outer part of it, and I'll repeat the process for the inner part. I'll make a region, same fill pattern. Let's see if I can choose a center. Yeah, if you right click, you'll see snap overrides, and you can choose center. Hover over the edge. And for my radius on the interior, I'm going to say 2 inches and hit the check mark. Oops, I need to use a circle. Let me try that again. So I'm going to go to circle. I'm going to right click, snap override, center, find the center, and 2 inches is my radius. Hit the check mark, and there I have my drain pipe. Okay. And again, it just needs to be kind of next to that footing. Doesn't need to be exactly centered. It's not precisely measured when it's placed. Okay, next we're going to be drawing the bolt that connects the frame to the foundation wall, sometimes referred to a J-bolt, and sometimes referred to as an anchor bolt. So it's going to basically go through the sill plate and be cast into the top of the foundation wall. So I'm going to go to Insert, Load Autodesk Family, and under my search terms, let's try bolt and see what comes up. There it is, anchor bolts hook side. And I will load that into the project. Now, when I go to annotate under components, there's my anchor bolt. You want to place it centered on the sill, but I think I may want to make some adjustments to its size. So I want to make it longer for one thing. Let's try changing this to 15 inches. And I'll have to move it down a little bit. I also feel like the diameter is a little bit too chunky. 1.5 inches. So I'm going to go to where it says edit type here, and it's called a 1.5 inch one. Let's change the dimensions here. We'll duplicate it and make a 3/4 inch anchor bolt, and we'll change the diameter. and we'll apply an okay. All right, now some of the other hardware components need to adjust as well. Let's see here, the washer height, head width. 2 quarters. Let's drop this down to 1.5 inches. Apply and okay. Maybe a little bit bigger. So the head width, let's change that to 1 3/4. And okay. And then I'm going to move this down. And we'll take a look at the whole wall. All right. Now, I feel like that hook is kind of coming around too close to the edge here. So click on that anchor bolt again. And actually this setting is right here. Let's change this to 4 inches. Okay. So that will work for the purposes of our detail here. So on top of the footing, there's something called a key. So you can see in this image here, it's basically formed while the footing is still, before the concrete has cured. And there's some examples here. Sometimes it's drawn with this kind of slight angle at the edges. Sometimes it's more squared off, like these two. But basically, what the key is doing is sort of locking in the foundation wall, keeping it from sort of sliding from one side to the other. And we'll be adding that to our detail. So I'll create this with first by setting up some sort of detail guidelines for myself. I'm going to start with the middle here, draw a line down. I'll copy this 2 inches. And I'll make another copy 4 inches over. And then I will draw another detail line from here to here and move that one down 2 inches. So I'll make my key as the square element. So this is fine. I just need some snapping points here. For the region that I'm going to create, I basically want to cover up this line and then have these edge lines. So what I'm going to do is go to region. I'm going to edit the type. I'm going to duplicate my region. And I'm going to call it concrete. And for the fill pattern, the color will stay. The fill pattern will be concrete. Click on OK. And we can check here. I don't know. This may need to be black. I'll go ahead and change it just in case. Okay, now I'm going to make a rectangle and I will let it extend a little bit above that line. And let's see here. I want to make these invisible lines. So I may need to select them. Visible lines and hit the check mark. And let's see how we did. Okay, that's fine. And I'm going to take these lines and sort of bring them back up to complete the form. Bring this over and delete this. Okay, so now I have a key. Next thing I'm going to draw are some reinforcing bars in the foundation wall. So when I mentioned reinforcing, basically, concrete is very good in compression. In other words, it can take vertical load, but it's not so great in tension. So typically when you're pouring concrete, you're also going to put into the concrete some reinforcing. That's what we're looking at here with these dots and some of these lines. So in this case, these are much more complicated than what we'll be working with, but you can see that there's reinforcing in the footing and that there's some in the foundation wall. How much reinforcing really depends on the soil conditions and the loads that are being transferred onto the foundation wall, just to sort of illustrate that this needs to be placed in the concrete. We'll kind of do a more simplified version of what you see here. So rebar comes in sizes based on number. Each number represents the number of eighths of an inch. So a number 4 is 4/8 of an inch, which is the same thing as half an inch in diameter. So for ours, we're going to draw number 6s. So applying the same concept, 6/8 means that the diameter of the reinforcing is going to be 3/4 of an inch, 6/8, which reduces down to 3/4. So to load into the project, we really probably could just draw these as closed filled circles. Let's see what we have for reinforcing. Reinforcing bar section. So we can use this and we can load it. And now let's go to annotate component. And let's see what was brought in. So I click on the arrow here. See, all of these sizes have been brought in. And as I mentioned, we're going to go with a number 6. All right, so I'm going to start by placing one of these reinforcing bars right up here at the upper corner, and then I'm going to move it in. So let's see here. You want to make sure that you have coverage for the concrete. So I have, about 2 inches here. Let's see if I move this over 2 inches. And this is something, depending on the complexity of the job, that you may be getting the consultation of a structural engineer to help you kind of figure out what the size of the reinforcing should be. All right, so I have 1, I moved it over 2 and down 4. It's touching this J bolt. Probably would be good to move it over just a little bit to give it some concrete coverage. And now what I'm going to do is mirror it. I can choose the center line of my foundation wall. I don't know that I can do that. So let's copy this from the center here. And then I'm going to move this one over 2 inches or 1 3/4 inches. Okay. And I'll move it down 4 inches. Okay. And, how many you need, again, this is something that we would need to study further and perform calculations and all of that business. All right, so I'm going to copy these 2. Copy from this midpoint, and I'll bring another pair down here. And then I'm going to move this one over. Oops. I'm going to move it back over 1/4 of an inch so that they're symmetrical. And I'll hold down the control key and move these up. Let's move them up 6 inches. Okay. All right, now, so we have them in the foundation wall. They're running lengthwise, and we will also add some to the footing. Okay, so I will make a copy of one of these, copy from the center point. I'll bring it over here, and then I'm going to move it over, let's say 4 inches here, and move it up 4 inches. And let's see if I can use the mirror tool for this one. No, I don't know what I did wrong. Okay, let's copy that one. And we'll put it in the same location over here. Move it up 4, move it over 4. Okay, and maybe there will be another one running down the middle here. Let's make a line. Copy. Erase our line. Okay, so there is our reinforcing for the wall. Next, we're going to be adding a line type that illustrates the addition of damp proofing. So this note here says damp proofing or waterproofing. Damp proofing, waterproofing is perhaps for more severe water conditions. If you've got a high water table, as I mentioned before, you may want to go with a waterproofing. We'll be showing something called a damp proofing. So here we have an example of the application of a damp proofing product. So this is just applied to the foundation wall before they come back and backfill. Now for our damp proofing, we are going to need to use a detail line. So you can see there's a whole bunch of options here, hidden lines and that sort of thing. Before we go ahead and place this line, let's take a look at the line styles that we currently have. So you can see here there are some already created, like this hidden 1/8. This is a very light line. We want this line to be somewhat bold. So I'm going to look for one that has a heavier line weight, like maybe a 3, and it needs to have a kind of a dash pattern. So let's see here, or a hidden pattern. So we may need to create a new one. Let's do that. Let's call this one hidden medium and click on OK. And make it a 3 and then look for a line type. Let's try a -1/8 and we'll make adjustments if this isn't quite the graphic that we want. All right, so I'm in the detail line. My line style is going to be hidden medium. And I'll go ahead and construct a line. Now I want this to be on the face of the foundation wall. And so I'm going to move it over so it doesn't sit on top of that solid line. Let's move it over 0.5 inches, even though it's applied directly to the foundation. And I feel like the spaces in between are a little bit too far. So I'm going to go to my additional settings, line styles, expand this, and instead of a -1/8, let's see what the hidden line types look like. Let's try hidden 1/8, apply, okay. Yeah, I think that's better. The space between them is closer. All right, so now we have a line type representing our damp proofing. So this kind of concludes all of the kind of additional graphics that we need to add. The next step will be to add the notations. So we will begin that in the next video.